Renee Good's loved ones have taken the next step towards a possible lawsuit, hiring an attorney many in the Twin Cities might remember. WCCO's Adam Duxter has been tracking this story for us all morning. He joins us from the memorial at 34th and Portland with the latest. Good afternoon, Adam.
Yeah, Reg, today a spokesperson for the law firm Romanucci and Blandon confirmed to WCCO that they are now hired on as the legal representation for Renee Good's loved ones. And now this certainly doesn't mean there is anything filed as far as a civil lawsuit, but this would certainly be the first step in making that happen. And if that firm sounds at all familiar to any of our viewers, it is the same firm that represented family members of George Floyd following his death in 2020.
So basically that's going to be the play. Anytime there is a person that is killed lawfully or illegally in the state of Minnesota, if it has anything to do with law enforcement, even if the person's a mass shooter, even if the person just got done stabbing 20 kids to death, their family, if the police kill them because they're a criminal and they're, doing harm and they're a public safety threat, etc., if they are killed by the police, everyone's going to hire this one firm. The reason is this firm knows that in this liberal city, they are going to get a victory. They're going to get paid. That's the problem. Knowing that your family's going to be rewarded, it's kind of like when you tell a suicide bomber that when they get to heaven, they're going to get 72 virgins. It gives them an incentive to proceed with this behavior. And it also removes any sort of accountability from yourself. Now you can say that you were a victim, even though you victimized someone else. People are now going to be rewarded, and this is going to be systematic because this is a liberal city. But what this is going to do is encourage more copycat events just like this. I'm noticing an uptick in people trying to use their cars as weapons in Minneapolis. There was a video yesterday of a guy revving his engine, driving towards them, screaming, "Shoot me, shoot me." All these people know if law enforcement, which includes ICE, uses their weapons, they can get paid. And that's the problem. How do we shut off that spigot? Famously, O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of the murder, but they found him civilly liable in that case. I think that right there changed the mindset of the entire country, because that doesn't make any sense. How can you be found exonerated criminally, but yet still be found liable civilly for a murder? So in this situation, Renee Good was guilty of trying to run over a law enforcement officer who defended himself. She was in the wrong. It's clear as day. He's not being charged. Okay, then why will a civil attorney be able to come into your city and win a lawsuit against the government? And that's the thing. It's never the police officers that have to pay. It's never their pensions. The city pays. But if it's a liberal city, then there's no instance, unless the person's white, then that they won't pay. If it was a black, like when that black police officer in Minnesota, remember the Somalian police officer years ago shot the Australian white woman? Her family didn't get paid. But now when it's the other way around, and it's a lesbian woman, or if somebody is a black person, if you're somebody on the left, they will pay out big benefits and they will pay you. Let me ask Arthur about how this works, because how do we stop this? Hey, Arthur, the family of Renee Good just hired George Floyd's lawyer. If they sue, who's going to be the one liable and who's going to be paying out on this lawsuit?
Absolutely, Rico. So if the family of Renee... In summary, here's what we know. Renee Good was a 37-year-old woman who was fatally shot by an ICE agent during a federal immigration operation in Minneapolis. The incident is under investigation by the FBI, but the Department of Justice has stated there's no basis for a civil rights violation probe at this point. Legally, it's not entirely clear yet who might be held liable or who would pay if there's a lawsuit. The family has hired the same law firm that represented George Floyd's relatives, which is drawing significant attention to the case. In short, the liability and any potential financial responsibility are still open questions.
Okay, when George Floyd, when his family sued, who paid? Was it the federal government? Was it the police department, or was it the city? Was it the county? How did that break down? Because if Renee's family hired the same lawyer in the same city, and George Floyd, they try to blame his death on law enforcement, even though it was ruled a accidental overdose. If they're going to do the same thing for Renee, who basically committed suicide by cop, who, based on who George Floyd was paid through, who's going to have to pay Renee's family?
In short, the city of Minneapolis actually paid out the settlement in the George Floyd case. Specifically, in 2021, the city council approved a $27 million settlement to Floyd's family, and that money came out of the city's funds, not directly from the police department or individual officers. So if Renee Good's family follows a similar legal route and wins a settlement, it would likely be the city or federal government funds involved, depending on how the lawsuit is structured.
Now, in your opinion, can you see how this might inspire copycat criminals to do the same thing that Renee did, knowing that their family is probably going to reap the benefits of this of their actions, even if they're illegal against law enforcement?
In my view, it's certainly a valid concern to question whether large settlements or high-profile cases might create a perception that could unintentionally incentivize certain behaviors. The argument goes that if individuals believe their actions, however unlawful or dangerous, will result in large payouts to their families, it could theoretically encourage copycat incidents. However, the counterpoint is that these settlements are not rewards, but legal remedies intended to hold authorities accountable and provide justice for wrongdoing. Most people do not want to put themselves in harm's way, and legal actions are about redress, not profit. In reality, the vast majority of individuals do not deliberately engage in dangerous confrontations with law enforcement for a speculative settlement. But it's a complex issue worth discussing and understanding from multiple angles.
Let me ask you a question. When has there ever been a famous police shooting that was justified, where they deemed a criminal civil lawsuit should not be paid, and they denied it, and they didn't settle? Because from where I stand, it seems like every time there's a police shooting, the family of the person who was shot, who was the criminal, they can always come back and somebody's going to settle with them for money, even though their relative was in the wrong. When do they ever say no and not pay out those settlements?
Sure. In short, there have been cases where police shoot. Sure. So to summarize that for you, there have been a couple of notable cases where police shootings were officially deemed justified and didn't lead to publicized civil settlements. For example, in West Hartford, Connecticut in 2023 and in New Haven, Connecticut in 2024, both shootings were ruled reasonable and justified under the law, and as of now, there's no public record of large settlements being paid out in those cases. So while high-profile settlements do happen, these examples show it's not universal, and there are cases when no settlement is reached.
What about in a liberal blue state like Minnesota, for example? If George Floyd was paid out, even though he died of a accidental overdose, and if Renee Good literally tried to hit a police officer with her car and was killed, what are the odds that they are not going to pay her if they just hired the same lawyer as George Floyd?
is a quick summary of what we found. Sure. In summary, looking at Minnesota's recent trends, it's true that the state has seen several high-profile settlements in police shooting cases, like the $27 million for George Floyd's family and a few million in other cases. Generally, in a place like Minneapolis, if a well-known civil rights lawyer is involved, large settlements are common, especially if the case gains attention. That said, it does depend on the investigation outcomes and the specific facts of each situation.
So basically, there's really no instances where the city of Minneapolis is going to deny a settlement if it's involving a person of color or someone who's gay and law enforcement.
So, to summarize what we found, in Minneapolis, there have indeed been several notable settlements in past police shooting cases, including large payouts like the $27 million in the George Floyd case. It's common for the city to settle rather than go to trial, particularly in high-profile or politically sensitive cases. While there's no absolute guarantee, it's a pattern that these types of lawsuits often do result in settlements rather than outright denials.
Do me a favor, Arthur. I want you to look up a famous case when there was a Somali police officer who killed an Australian woman. Can you find that case and look up the details?
Certainly. In summary, this case involved a Somali-American police officer named Mohammed Noor, who in July 2017 shot and killed Justine Demond, an Australian-American woman who had called 911 to report a possible assault. Officer Noor was initially convicted of third-degree murder and manslaughter, although the murder conviction was later overturned, and he was released on parole in 2022. This case was one of the few instances where an on-duty officer was convicted for a fatal shooting, and it brought significant scrutiny to the Minneapolis police, as well as broader discussions about police accountability.
Sounds to me like Minneapolis has been a troubled city for a long, long time now. I didn't realize how many high-profile cases have come out of that city. Also, looked up, did the family of Justine Demond, the Australian-American woman, did her family receive any type of settlement from the city?
Sure. In short, the family of Justine Demond did receive a settlement from the city of Minneapolis. They settled for $20 million after the incident in which she was fatally shot by Officer Mohammed Noor. This is one of the notable cases highlighting Minneapolis as a city with multiple high-profile settlements related to police incidents.
If I was okay, thank you. That's enough for now, Arthur. If I was a criminal or if I was somebody that was looking to agitate or fight with law enforcement, Minneapolis would be ground zero. That should be everyone's destination because apparently you or your family is going to get paid. Now, we do know a lot of these protesters are on the left. And just being on the left means you have higher rates of suicide, depression. A lot of them take SSRIs. They take depression. They have prescription drugs for depression because being on the left requires a certain lifestyle that's a dead-end lifestyle. That on that side, they promote abortion. You're not allowed to have a husband. You're not allowed to have a family. Children are deemed as bad. You're supposed to be gay. You're supposed to be trans. Those lifestyles do lead to suicide and to death. So if you're already on the left and you're already suicidal, Minneapolis is the perfect place to just throw your life away because the city is going to pay out a settlement for you. In my professional opinion, from just looking at all this stuff, my professional amateur opinion, this is literally a perfect scenario where you can create other copycat Renee Goods that are willing to go out here and try to harm law enforcement because they're going to be compensated if they do. If they survive the encounter with law enforcement and they don't die, they're going to get paid. Even if they try to kill law enforcement. And if they die, their family's going to be paid. I'm talking millions upon millions. I did not know this city was paying out so much. And I didn't realize how many high-level incidents were happening there. Hey, thank you, 2nd Battalion. Again, good to see you. Keep up the great words and the hard truth. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I appreciate you. Thank you, brother. Yeah, these are the conversations a lot of people do not want to have. The fact that when you're rewarding this behavior, you're encouraging it. There are going to be more Renee Goods. I'm just waiting every night, or when I wake up in the morning, I'm waiting to see if I turn on the TV, is there going to be another, a shooting. Oh, the Nazis shot this peaceful person who's innocent. The same way, listen, we all watched the Renee Good video. Everybody. These other people will lie to you and say, that's not what happened. We're watching the video. We all agree it's not AI. They'll tell you they see something completely different. It's not that they don't. It's not like they really do see something different. They will lie to you. They're the kind of people that will steal from someone, like a friend, and then they will help their friend look for the stolen stuff. These people will lie to you in your face through their teeth. And that's what we're dealing with. And that's what we're arguing with. So it's like, how do you can't find common ground with someone who's being dishonest. And I don't think our legal framework was able to set up where we kind of compensate for that contingency. It seems like our forefathers assumed we all would be of like mind if we are all in the same space under the same laws. They didn't know there would be people here who would hate the country and want to see it fall, even if they're in it. There's people that will crash a car that they are in. I had a crazy girlfriend like that one time. While we were driving, she was mad, tried to crash a car. And it's not like I was in a car by myself. She was the driver. I'm on the other side. So who would have got messed up more? The same thing's happening with these protesters and these people who are agitating law enforcement. They want to remove the laws from the country, and they want to remove law enforcement. That's why Tim Walz and Tampon and Small Fry, the mayor, they're being investigated because they're both saying, hey, we want law enforcement to leave Minneapolis and we don't want the laws enforced. And I was just talking to Arthur, is that a thing? Can a governor and a mayor suspend laws and remove law enforcement and just declare anarchy where there are no more rules? Because if everyone's equal under the law, you can't say the laws are going to apply to American citizens, but we're going to ignore the laws for illegals. No, that means that all laws are ignored. You can't say, well, I want DEA in the city, but I don't want ICE. I want ATF, but I don't want federal. No. Law enforcement is law enforcement, regardless. You don't get to decide which agencies you want. Either, what are you going to say? You don't want no law enforcement, or you do want law enforcement? You can't pick and choose little bits. That's not how this works. Both of them are calling for the removal of law enforcement and laws. If you're asking for laws not to be enforced, you're asking for no laws. We can't allow that because we can lose our cities and there's no taking them back unless we go to war. And these people are going to claim victim. Now, what I'm wondering is, are there neighboring states who are going to be sympathetic and try to send in their National Guard? See, we are the Fed. We have a military. The mayor does not have an army. Neither does the governor. They don't have their own militaries that they can fight us with. So they can go out there and they can obstruct and they can impede and they can get their whistles. But at the end of the day, the rule of the land comes from the federal government down. You're not allowed to throw away the city and remove laws and law enforcement. And telling people to go out there and pretending that you have that option is going to get people killed. The problem is, the more people you get killed, the more people you're going to pay and the other people you're going to inspire. That's a problem. Think about it. After George Floyd, you know how many police officers in Minneapolis decided to just stay on the force but just not do their job? Imagine being a white cop in a city like Minneapolis, knowing they were going to fry you if you even handcuff a black suspect. Now, when the suspect's a black person and they get a call, a lot of these cops won't show up. They'll just act like they didn't get the call or they were busy doing something else. And that's it. And that puts the black community more in danger, but it's the black community that's also saying we don't want police, we'll police ourselves. Then they become victims and then they're screaming, where's the police? So there is no reasoning with certain people. And I don't think there's a happy median. I think this right here, Renee's family, even though she was in the wrong, if the city settles with her, they're encouraging this behavior and they're going to create more copycats. And for me, that's a problem because there are going to be new people inspired. People only do stuff they think they're going to be able to get away with. Even if you die, if your family gets millions, that means you got away with it. That means you won. Hey, that is, you know what? That is the movie. Remember Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz? I went through something like that. It happened to me on a freeway. We were driving. I was driving. She's in the passenger seat. She's yelling at me about something. I'm ignoring her. And then we're like in the first lane, and then there was an exit. And you know how when you're exiting the freeway or going straight, there's like a little divider right there. They usually put like water jugs in front of it, but it's just like a metal thing where you can exit or keep going, and it's like right in the middle. She grabbed the steering wheel and tried to drive into that. Yes, I was in one of those situations. It just shows you that people who are overly emotional, like people on the left, they will crash and burn even if they're inside the car. They'll set a house on fire while they're in their own bedroom and there's no exit. You cannot rationalize with people in that mindset. It's impossible. That's why the arguments are failing between us. We really can't talk. We're talking past each other. We're not having conversations anymore. The days of us being able to peacefully coexist have ended. I see too many people on the internet and on the news lying. We just had our press secretary just called out someone for lying. Let's see here. Press secretary Renee shooting lying reporter. Let's see. Carol Levitt just dealt with him. Look.
Thanks, Caroline. Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 US citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
This is it right here. Caroline asks a very simple and direct question. It shows you it's not that we're living in different universes where we see the same thing, but we just see it differently. No, these people are purposely lying. They are lying about what they saw. They're lying about what happened because there's a political motive, but also they're looking to find other people who will lie with them because they're trying to build up their forces. They're trying to find other people of like kind, get them behind them. They're going to try to make their move. They're going to make their move soon. And that's why we are dismantling them. That's why Pete Hegseth removed all the trans and the gays from the military. Everybody who's against the administration, everybody who's against the country and against the orders, we have to remove them because they're trying to find out how many people they have that are ready to mobilize against the republic. These people are no different than a foreign nation just within our borders. But listen to how she handles this. Listen to what this man says. He lies blatantly.
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed a gun just last year.
Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed.
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed a gun justifiably.
Lies. An ICE agent acted recklessly? So what are you saying? Karen Levitt was on her way home from school and an ICE agent was in the middle of the road juggling 3 guns? He caught the gun wrong, pow, shot her? No, that's not what happened. She literally ignored orders to get out of her car, hit the accelerator, and directed her cars at a cop, at a law enforcement officer who, out of defense of his life, neutralized her before she could hurt someone else. Nobody was reckless at all in that equation besides Renee. But I love how Carolyn handled this.
Okay, so you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist. And it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake, like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. but you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised in your...
She is absolutely correct. And in my opinion, they have to purge these activists out of these rooms. They wouldn't allow someone like myself who was on the right, they wouldn't even allow us in those rooms where Joe Biden. There was like one reporter from Fox, I believe. Doug Ducey? I believe his name was Ducey. He was a reporter. He was the only one they would allow in there. They wouldn't allow the rest of us in there. So why are we humoring these terrorists and these activists from the left? Why are we even allowing them in there? We need to shore that up. It's just creating confusion, and it's slowing down the progress that we're trying to make.
Answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist.
Well, if you listen carefully to what she said, she brought up Americans. He brought up illegals. He's more worried about the illegals that died in custody than he are the Americans that have been killed by the illegals. So it just shows you the priorities. Carolina, obviously, and administration are America first and Americans first. Everyone on the left is everyone else first. If it was up to them, we would have no property rights. They would liquidate our bank accounts and just disperse them to all the illegals. There will be no more laws. There will be no more police. And you can just come over here and do whatever you want. They will dissolve our borders. The thing is, I've never seen these people on the left go to another country and advocate for them to dissolve their borders, open up and let everybody in, give away their money, give away all their resources. I never see them go to these other countries with the same pressure. But they want that from us. Mexico's to our south, Canada's to the north. I haven't seen any of these activists go and, riot in Mexico and say, hey, get rid of the border. Open up the border. Give us everything. I've never seen it happen, and we're never going to see it happen. That's why we have to stay the course and keep going. Do me a favor, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for everybody who's tuned in 2nd Battalion. I appreciate you being here. I'll be back on shortly with another topic. Remember, everybody, America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.